everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and today we're going to be looking at the medicine cards again. I've already done this video and I lost the footage. Happens every once in a while. I should learn my lesson, but I have a lot of video coming into my computer between client readings and walkthroughs and videos and stuff like that. So once I've exported them out and uploaded them, I delete the videos off. I know, you should keep backups, blah, blah, blah. But for these kinds of things that are recreatable, I don't do it for my client videos, but for my walkthroughs and things. Once it's successfully uploaded on YouTube, I delete them, and then I successfully deleted it off of YouTube before it was listed. And so we're coming through this part 2 or a second time around, and I don't even actually have now the box, because the box is not a box that I would keep. And so I don't have the box for it to show you because I've already thrown that away. So it comes in a bigger box where this book is slid inside, and then but it's just like a Llewellyn style box. Nothing fancy, nothing that would make you want to keep it, unless, it just, this has already got a box. So I would just stick this on my shelf. I'm not going to stick the whole, because this would go in with my actual guidebooks, and so I wouldn't keep the big box. So that being said, so that's what it does. It does come in a box like this. It has this really great hardback book, which we'll look at in a second, and then it comes with the cards. Now I'm going to have to pause in a moment before we walk through the cards, and I'll put them in order. However, there are in this deck there are 51. Let me make sure of that. 52 animal cards, but then there are 9 blank cards. And I have gone through with my, I have a vinyl cutter. It's like a printer, but it cuts vinyl instead. I like what I did with the my Totem drum. Let me see, I'll show you. If I ever showed this finished, I might have to do that but there was the name of the drum up here, and so I put this on through the vinyl, and then I put this bottom, which is gorgeous, with my wolf and the raven. So it cuts vinyl like that, and so I use that to put into the blank cards. Of course, now you're getting a quick look at all of the cards. Oh, maybe I already separated them off. I don't think so. There's one. There's the dragon. There's one. There's one. There's one. I feel like there should be more than that. There's one. There's one, because there's like 9 blank ones that you get with the deck. That might be all of them. I think that will be it. Okay. So you get 52 animal cards like this, where you have the name, the number, the name, the image. This changes, but it doesn't seem to be specific to the animal. There's like 4 or 5. I haven't really looked closely, but then they do repeat themselves. It seems to be more decorative than anything. I'm not super thrilled with the backings, because it looks to me like a superhero backing. This may be for good reason, but it just, to me, like, I would have loved one of these more natural colors that shows in the deck itself. But this is just like this random turquoise that's really not anywhere in the image of the cards at all. So it's just kind of odd that it would have this strange backing. So probably one of my at least it's clean, right? It's not crazy busy, but definitely not one of my favorite backings. And then you have these 9 extra cards. I went through like the spirit animal deck, which I use, an animal deck I used a lot, and I wanted the scorpion, the elephant, the bee, the phoenix, Camel I love a lot in both Deste and another animal deck that I have. The vulture energy I think is really important. The unicorn I got with the phoenix and the dragon as sort of that more mythological creatures, and then the chickadee, of course, for Michael, and it has a lot to do with strength and resilience, and so I made a chickadee card. So those are the cards that I did, again, by cutting out these vinyl and sticking them on there. So that's what I did with my extra cards, but I will look through those more closely when we look through the cards. So let's take a quick look at the book, because I actually bought this deck more for the book than the cards, because I just heard a lot of good things about the about this particular book. Let's zoom in a little closer here. Okay, so as you can see, it's a hardback. It's a nice hardcover book. I wish that some of the maybe money for doing a hardback book had gone into the cards, which the card stock is pretty bad on this, but it is a nice book. Lots of acknowledgments to their former teachers and medicine women and such, which is quite lovely. I've started to put some of the keywords, each of the cards, like for Raven has a single keyword, and for Raven would be magic, and so I've started, as I've had pulled some of these, to put that keyword right on the contents for when I just want to quickly flip through and grab that keyword. But so that's what you see there. Of course, an introduction acknowledgement, a discussion on animal medicine, and so that's, of course, interesting. I haven't read this from cover to cover yet, although I do intend on it. The healing power of animal medicines, and then it goes into finding your 9 totem animals. And one of the things that I really liked about this was that it understands that because I don't personally think you can just discover all of your totem animals just through doing a card reading. I know just some people probably do it that way, and that's fine. But for me personally, those 2 totems that work with you, they talk about, that kind of stay with you for your lifetime, those are ones that have to come about through conversation, about paying attention to what animals of energy have been around you. What do you see a lot of? You know, that goes into some foresight and some intuitive knowledge about things. But it does, the other 7, it has you do a reading to pull for those 7 other, and I quite like how it does it, where you have the East, for your guides you in your spiritual challenges, the South, the child within, the West, your personal truth and inner answers, the North gives wise counsel, when to speak, when to listen, the animal above honors the great star nation, or sense of the divine, I suppose, and your place in this divine wheel. Below teaches you about the inner earth and how to stay grounded, and then within teaches you how to find your heart's joy and be faithful to your personal truths. And then, of course, you have the 2 on either side, which are not found through cards. So I do like that in a book that is obviously a deck of cards about animal totems, it acknowledges that your 2 primary ones probably should be found in a different method than just drawing cards. So I appreciated that. It talks about the medicine wheel and the medicine shield, definitely coming from a Native American aspect, which is really beautiful to read. And again, I need to read from cover to cover. And then it goes into some spreads. I quite like this medicine wheel spread. I did change up. They had past, present, and future going backwards. That just doesn't make sense to my brain, so I just, moving them the other way. But I quite liked it. It was a druidic spread. So I really liked this one. I have tried this one multiple times. They have a 5 card, with your north, south, east, and west cards, and then a center card, and then various ways to use that. A sun lodge, the moon lodge, the butterfly spread is a 4 card, and I quite like this earth and sky, masculine and feminine energy spread, and I've used this a number of times as well. It does talk about contrary cards or reversed cards, which would show an imbalance in that particular medicine. So depending on how you were reading with this deck, you would use reversals to show whether that energy was imbalanced or blocked in some way. And so that's quite interesting. A lot of times with oracle decks, you don't have reversals. I can see it being important depending on what, if you're just finding your totems, no. But if you are actually using this for readings, you would almost need to, because the animal energy is fairly neutral and or positive, and so in order to know whether that was blocked or not, you would either need to have a position of what energy is blocked, or I think you would need to use reversals. So that's interesting. And it talks about having the blanked shield cards to use as you see fit. You can either do your 9 once you determine your 9, put them in there as kind of use those, or like me, use them for cards that you would like to see in the deck that weren't there. And then it goes into the each of the cards. And so here we have, for example, the eagle. There's like a little kind of poem. Eagle, fly high, touch great spirit, share your medicine, touch me, honor me, so that I may know you too. It has the number, the animal, the key word, so for eagle is spirit, and then it has a good section discussing the card, and then it has the contrary position. And so I'm going to read a couple of these, but I'm going to read with my, when I come to wolf and raven, which are my animal totems, I'm going to read those out loud so that you can hear how this works. And of course this goes all the way through to all 52 cards, and the black, ending with the Black Panther, and then there's some room for notes and for about the artist and the authors. So quite a lovely guidebook. And again, this was one of the reasons I wanted this deck, was more for the book than for the cards, although I've come to quite enjoy the cards as well. So so that's that. Let me move this to the side so we can take a look at the cards. Cardstock is probably the worst cardstock that I have. It's similar to Madame Endor's fortune cards, are very thin as well, but those still feel like they're not glossy. I don't know. They're similar to that, but that's a $12 deck. This is a $30 deck, although again, we do have a hardback book here, and with the Madame Endor, you don't have any book at all. So they're definitely thin cards. There's nothing great to say about the cardstock. In my opinion. They're glossy, but not horribly so, so I don't mind that so much. But they're just really, really thin. I mean, you can bend them both any old way. They're very thin. I have not great expectations of those holding up very well. In terms of size, Dreams of Gaia is quite a large tarot deck. This is taller than that, but thinner, so they're kind of thin and tall. This is a more standard oracle. They're about the same size as an oracle, but just much thinner. In terms, let's see what I got right here. Compared to a Llewellyn Tarot of the Hidden Realms, it is a little bit wider than a Llewellyn card, but significantly taller. And they are quite tall, I will say. They're a little bit, I'm considering cutting the white part off and just going to the red. It will obviously eat a little into the red when I do the corners, and it's not because I don't like the white, it's just that they are actually quite tall for rifle shuffling, and that little bit sometimes does help, but I'm going to use them for a while before I consider that. But again, the white border doesn't bother me whatsoever, so if I were to trim it, it would simply be in order to make it just a little bit less straining on my fingers. And I have fairly long, what I would consider fairly long fingers for a woman, and so yeah, they're quite tall if you rifle shuffle. If you don't rifle shuffle, it doesn't really matter. So let me zoom in here this won't take too long because, you know, they're pretty basic here cards, which are beautiful, but you have the number, the title, an image, a beautifully done image. Actually, this goes really well with the Animal Totem Tarot, just in terms of art style, which I quite like. You do have different things, but I don't think they necessarily reflect the animal. There seem to be like 4 or 5 different ones that then start to repeat themselves. I haven't seen anything, and the book doesn't talk about those in specificness to the animal, so I think it's just decorative. If somebody else knows different, feel free to correct me on that. And so here you know what I will do, I'll get the guidebook. I'll just talk about. And one thing I like, at first I was like, oh, it would have been nice for those single cards, meanings or keywords to be on the deck, but you know, we all see different animals differently, and so I think it's actually best that they aren't there, but I will say what they have them associated with. So here we have the eagle, which is associated with spirit, the hawk, beautifully done, associated with messenger. The elk here is associated with stamina. The sweet deer is associated with gentleness. The bear is associated with introspection, which I think is quite interesting. I do think of it as strength and safety. It does talk about the eternal mother. It does talk about the safety of the womb cave. So there is that sense of protective energy, and it is definitely connected with female receptive and protective energy, which is beautiful as well. Here we have snake for transmutation. The transmutation of the life, death, rebirth cycle is exemplified by the shedding of the snake skin. I love the eggs that are there as well. Here we have skunk for reputation. That was kind of interesting. It was like, you know, he has a reputation of don't mess with him, even though he's probably not all that physically strong, but because he is going to, you know, we know what's going to happen if you mess with a skunk. He gains respect, and people kind of steer away from him because they simply know his reputation. Here we have the otter for woman medicine, which was beautiful. I did read this. It's about caring of the young. It's playfulness. They would use the hide of an otter for medicine bags for powerful women because of this woman connection and the water connection. So we have that. I also definitely think of like playfulness with otters. We have transformation with the butterfly. With the turtle, we have Mother Earth. Because the turtle in Native American is often associated with earth, whereas the earth is kind of built on the back of a turtle in stories that we have. I took a few classes on Native American literature because the teacher was, she was an Ojibwe Indian, which I believe we Europeans coming to the country ended up calling Chippewa. I could be wrong about that. I need to look it back up. But anyways, they call themselves the Ojibwe people, and that is the Native American that I have in my family ancestry is Ojibwe. And so it was. I took quite a few of her courses because it was really an interesting experience to tap into that heritage. My grandfather, would be my great-grandfather, was born in a wigwam and came down the Ohio River on a raft. You know, I love the Ohio, the lore, you know, family lore is to me such a powerful thing. And so anyway, so it was great, a learning experience to sort of tap into the energy of that piece of my heritage, even though it's not a large piece. It does show itself. My aunt, my grandfather was full German, and my mother's mother, so it was my mother's father, was full German. Her mother was mostly English with some German as well. So German was very predominant, and you can see it in their whole family. My grandfather looked that kind of atypical, what we at least in America think of that atypical, tall, blue-eyed, blonde-haired German, and so but then one of my aunts, and most of the children look quite tall and angular, and they look quite German, and then, or the German side of the family. And then one of my aunts looks very Native American. It's just like it kind of crops up right out of when you have mixed lineage like that. And so it's quite interesting. So I'm getting off track here. Next one is the moose, which is for self-esteem. But again, because there are no keywords, you may have certain connotations. I also picked up a book about animal energy, which I may compare when I get to the raven so we can see sort of the differences. I had done some research to see, okay, well, what book? You know how I've said before that I tend to get 1 or 2 books on a topic. Usually no more than 2, and I kind of let those stand as I'm learning more about things. And so I did pick up Animal Spirit Guides. See if I can get to the cover here. By Stephen Farmer, because it had the most, I think it has 200 animal guides in it, and I have found this to be quite interesting and quite fascinating in reading to people who I know their animal guides, and so able to kind of see that, and it's been quite, I'm impressed with this book. I'm not finished reading it through. I will do a video about it once I've done that, but this leaves that open depending on how you choose to work with the animals, so I quite like that. Here we have the porcupine for innocence, which is quite interesting. Coyote for the trickster, of course. That's the coyote energy in Native American folklore, is definitely that beautiful trickster. I love trickster energy, and this is definitely, coyote is definitely trickstery in Native American lore. The dog for loyalty. The wolf. Okay, so here is my first totem since I was quite young. So this is wolf, which is as the teacher. So it says, wolf is the pathfinder, the forerunner of new ideas who returns to the clan to teach and share medicine. Wolf takes one mate for life and is loyal like dog. If you were to keep company with wolves, you would find an enormous sense of family within the pack, as well as a strong individualistic urge. These qualities make wolf very much like the human race. As humans, we also have an ability to be part of a society and yet still embody our individual dreams and ideas. In the Great Star Nation, wolf is represented by the dog star Sirius, which legend tells us was the original home of our teachers in ancient time. Sirius was thought to be the home of the gods by the ancient Egyptians and is still considered so by the Dogon tribe in Africa. It stands to reason that Native American peoples would formulate this same connection and adopt wolf people as the clan of teachers. The scents of wolf are very clean, and moon is its power ally. The moon is a symbol for psychic energy, or the unconscious that holds the secrets of knowledge and wisdom. Baying at the moon may be an indication of wolf's desire to connect with new ideas which are just below the surface of consciousness. Wolf medicine empowers the teacher within us all to come forth and aid the children of earth in understanding the great mystery and life. If you have drawn wolf's cards, you may be able to share your personal medicine with others. Your intuitive side may also have an answer or teaching for your personal use at this time. As you feel wolf coming alive within you, you may wish to share your knowledge by writing or lecturing on information that will help others better understand their uniqueness or path in life. It is in the sharing of great truths that the consciousness of humanity will attain new heights. Wolf could also be telling you to seek out lonely places that will allow you to see your teacher within. In the aloneness of a power place, devoid of other humans, you may find the true you. Look for teachings no matter where you are. Wolf would not come to you unless you requested the appearance of the tribe's greatest teacher. Contrary, so reverse, it says, if wolf is reversed, you are being asked to expand your limited view of the present situation. Doing this may entail a great deal of courage and a willingness to look at new ideas. It could also require that you delete some old ideas to make room for the expansiveness that always comes when you are willing to learn. The gift of wisdom comes to you when you have walked through pathways and found enough dead ends to truly know the forest. In the discovery and rediscovery of every inch of ground comes the knowledge that nothing nothing ever remains the same. Contrary wolf may also be telling you that stagnation or fear of asserting your viewpoint has bogged down the flow of change in your life. Wolf reversed is always urging you to seek the teachers or pathfinders that will show you the way to new life experiences. Remember, the teacher or pathfinder may be the small, still voice within, as well as a person, a leaf, a cloud, a stone, a tree, a book, or the Great Spirit. To live is to grow, and growing comes through accepting all life forms as your teacher. Become wolf and take up the sense of adventure. You may just stop howling and learn to become the moon. I love that ending. So there is a sample of how you would read it. And what I love is that the second one, the next one from Wolf, is Raven, which is, of course, my other totem, which I was in the early 20s when I have had this one. And the keyword for this is magic. I'm going to leave these two out for the spread that I'm going to show you at the end. So then we have here Mountain Lion for leadership, which is similar to what a lion would be in sort of an African lion. Because I thought of putting lion in one of the extra cards, but the Mountain Lion card functions similarly. So here we have Lynx for secrets. We have Buffalo here for prayer and abundance. We have Mouse, which is for scrutiny. Beautiful Owl for deception. I don't see it so much with deception. I see it for wisdom. So again, I'm glad that it's not on the card itself. Beaver for builder. Opossum for diversion. Crow is for law. Fox is for camouflage. Squirrel is for gathering. Dragonfly for illusion and dream time. Armadillo for boundaries. Definitely has his own bubble space built in. Here we have Rabbit for, or is about fear. I don't see the rabbit just as about fear. It goes in and talks about it. I think that there's more to rabbit than fear. I think that that's a little bit limited view of rabbit. Especially, I think, if you look to the rabbit. Let me see if I can. My iPad is about to die battery-wise, but let me see if I can pull rabbit up. I do like that you can see all the animals on the side, so I can go straight there rather than try to scroll through like some have. So here we have rabbit. Creative time, because it's about creation and lots of babies. So there's definitely that a different... If rabbit is your power animal, it's about intelligence, common sense, and wit serve you well, getting you out of scrapes, great strategist, eternal optimist, things like that. Sensitive, articulate, artistic. You definitely have different meanings, and that's why I find that you kind of have to figure out also what does it mean to you. And so I think that probably all of those things from different books can be part of rabbit, but what does it mean all together for you is something that you have to, I think, work with things through. So here we have turkey. Again, this was another one I didn't really like because it just tied turkey in with Thanksgiving. It's called the giveaway. It was thought to be the giveaway eagle in Native Americans. So it's the idea that you have to sacrifice. But it just seems so Thanksgiving-y. I feel like, you know, turkey has more to offer than just as a Thanksgiving meal. So that's one I'm going to have to put a little bit more look into. I don't know. Let me see. Can't remember if this one has a turkey. QRS. Whoops. Yeah. Transcend, important to transcend the focus on your own needs to consider the greater needs of the whole. you do your best to help others in need. So it still is kind of tied in with that idea of helping others in need, you know, kind of, don't play the martyr though. It's about communal, being a communal person. You may appear somewhat awkward to others, but you're quick, alert, and capable. We're talking about adaptability and such. So there's a little bit there, but quite a little bit less than the strong sort of Thanksgiving vibe. That I don't know why my videos have gotten so yellow of late. This is a very white card. I'm gonna have to try to fix the temperature when I import the video. Randomness there. Here we have ant for patience. Of course, I think of strength because they're supposed to be able to carry so much more than their, you know, their weight they're able to carry. So I also think of strength, community, communication. Here we have weasel for stealth, or keyword of stealth. Grouse with sacred spiral. This was quite interesting. It has to do with the spiral dance that they do. I thought that was really interesting as well. We have the horse for power. We have the lizard for dreaming, and most of these in the guidebook, it will give you there's so many. That's one of the reasons I so enjoyed, you know, coming from sort of Celtic folk tradition, and then going and doing several classes on Native American, and some were on actual more modern books, but then I had one of them that was more on the folk stories, and there's just so many of them and so wonderful. I love sort of fables and folk tales and folklore, and so this book generally gives sort of the folk story surrounding the particular animal, which I love that. So I'm really looking forward to actually reading this book. Here we have antelope for action. We have frog for cleansing. A beautiful swan for grace. Dolphin for mana. The breath of life it talks about. Mana is life force. Mana is present in every atom and is a great spirit. So it sounds like chi, as well as the idea of life force in Celtic Druidism and things of that nature. So I quite like that idea. We have whale for the record keeper, which is beautiful. We have bat for rebirth. We have spider for weaving. We have hummingbird for joy. Blue heron for self-reflection. Raccoon for generous protector. A prairie dog for retreat, but there's so many things also of guarding and alertness, like, and I'm sure it talks. I haven't read again through all of these, but I do. You know, I think of so many things when I think of little prairie dogs. We had a whole like setup of these in our zoo where you could see under. You know, down below the glass as well, but just sitting and watching them. It was a place that I liked. I took the kids to the zoo a lot, and so I would just sit at the zoo with the kids. Good place to stop and feed them when they were little or whatever, and just watch them. They were just so fascinating to me, so I quite like that. Wild boar for confrontation. It also is good for Celtic lore. Lots of wild boar. Salmon for wisdom and inner knowing. Alligator for integration. Jaguar for integrity, which I thought was quite interesting because there is a jaguar. Of course, I won't be able to find it. I should have, but I forgot. In the Dreams of Gaia, which is, of course, a deck I am most in love with at the moment, has an integrity card, and one of the things when I was doing the walkthrough, I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. I wonder what the jaguar has to do, and Raven was so lovely as to explain that. Okay, see, whenever you try to find a card out of a deck, it's going to be what? Either the last card. There we go. So see, there's in integrity, there is a jaguar and an owl. And so I quite love that connection there. All that just to say that. As if I didn't think you would trust me when I said that it was there. Integrity and impeccability. And then the last of the printed cards is Black Panther for embracing the unknown. And then, of course, I have my added ones of camel, elephant, chickadee, vulture, bee, scorpion, dragon, unicorn, and phoenix. So that together comprises, of course, all of my cards. But I'm going to leave those added ones out for the moment while we zoom back out and take a look at a couple of these spreads. Now, as I said, these are actually quite, again, I have long hands, and these are really hard to get. At least they're thin. It's not 78 cards, but they are definitely difficult to get the hand. It's stretching, like I can feel the stretch. So I may trim those to just get a little less play, or yeah, just get a little bit less of a have to stretch. But I'm going to wait a little bit and see. They're just so thin. Now, somebody may, put in the comments that yes, they're thin, but they hold up really well. That I don't know. I just would be concerned about this getting eaten up just because they're just so thin. Of course, that makes them shuffle beautifully, but other than being super long. But yeah, they shuffle beautifully. I just don't know how they're going to hold up. That's my only concern. Okay, so in finding your totems, you would keep out, if there were the cards to do with your primary totems, you would obviously want to keep those out, which I have done here with, and I'm not doing this one seriously for me, because that's something that I would do with intention. I would do it probably on a full moon, or at least a new moon, but certainly most likely I would do it on a full moon. And so this is just kind of showing what's here. So for this spread, again, you would go through and find the ones that were your major totems, and then you would lay a card sort of in an arc, starting from east to south. I may have to adjust these as we go. To west, upright in the north. So this would be the start. Try to get it a little bit arched, right? Just a little bit here. And then you would go above and below. And then you would go within. And so then that would be your, and I'm not going to look all these up because this isn't an actual reading, but for example, this one is quite a lovely one. I highly recommend. Again, I've heard this about this in terms of for the book. It's great. I like this, that this is the animal that will guide you in spiritual challenges, protects the child within, lead you to your personal truth. The crow, yeah, that makes sense. The north animal gives you counsel about when to speak and when to listen. Listen carefully, scrutinizing things. Above we have honoring the great star nation, or that reminding you come from the stars, and to the stars your return. Your kind of your place in the world, as well as dream time, which is interesting because it's the world one of the turtle. And then you have below about inner earth, the coyote, the tricksteriness, about the path. And then within is finding your heart's joy and desire, which we have the alligator here. And then of course you have, now they have right side as the father protector and left side as the female protector. Both of mine feel quite male energy wise, but they also have both feminine as well, especially the wolf with the moon and the raven with the magic, and for me, both those energies feel both. But they do have that set there. So that's like one of their, and they don't consider this to be so much a spread that you would use for divination. This is something you would do just one time, and then you would be working with those energies. So that's a little bit different, right, than an actual spread. The two spreads that I have found to be quite helpful and useful. Give that a little bit of a shuffle here. But yeah, see, I can already see, I've used these a little bit, but not a ton. But I can already see like corners kind of getting bent, because again, it is, and again, I am rifle shuffling. I own the fact that when I rifle shuffle, that is going to create more stress on cards. And I acknowledge that. However, good playing cards, can hold up to a lot of shuffling. So I do expect that for the most part, I should be able to rifle shuffle without it getting too bent up. So, that's just heads up on the cardstock, not great. It's fun. It's nice to shuffle because of it. I love to shuffle the Madame indoors, but in terms of survivability, I have my concerns. I really like this very simple earth and sky spread, where you simply, for me, I would personally just split, right, and turn. And so you would look to, I think it has Earth, Mother Earth is, side of the body is the left side, the female side, which is ruled by the right brain or intuitive side of the mind. And then the Father sky is on the, obviously the left side, the right side of the body, ruled by the left side of the brain, or the more analytical side of the mind. And so I just like this, actually, just that being a way to pull the sort of feminine and masculine energy and say, what does that have to say? And I've actually used this, during readings, instead of, let's say, a single, because a lot of times I'll pull two oracle cards, and so I quite like that way of doing so. So that was one, which was just called the Earth and Sky, or Father Sky and Mother Earth spread. Let me just show you real quick these with the Animal Totem, because it actually looks really good with the Animal Totem Tarot. I ended up putting my Animal Totem Tarot in that deck or bag that I had originally made for sort of my ritual bag. That I need a bigger one, and so I ended up using this for my Animal Totem. But you can see that it's kind of hard to, I was going to try to find some, but the artwork of the inner image is very reminiscent. It has that sort of I don't know how to describe it because I'm not an artist, but it works really beautifully with the, I think visually, with the Animal Totem. Another deck, very difficult to rifle shuffle. But it does, I haven't used this one as much as my Line Strider, which is the same cardstock, and the Line Strider has definitely gotten easier and easier to shuffle, but it's definitely a hard, this is that new Llewellyn cardstock. I don't mind it, but it's very difficult to rifle shuffle sometimes until you've really broken it in. I don't know why I'm going through all the shuffling, but yeah, so you could do sort of a six card, and then, there, and pull the Father Earth and Mother Earth, and Father Sky over here, and they just look really good together. I mean, obviously I have my camel here. But the artwork just visually, I think, works really beautiful with this particular deck, and so I am really happy with it. So I think I'm going to go ahead and trim these so that you can see what they're going to look like. I'm just trying to decide if I want to do that, but then it's going to get cut off by the corner, or if I'm just going to cut to the inside, and I think I'm going to cut to the inside. So I'll be back to show you that. I decided to do the smart thing and test one to the outside of the red, because I can always then cut inside the red. So I decided to do a tester one. Let's see, I'm going to use the smallest. Now I could leave it with the corners, but I don't personally like sharp corners because I do rifle shuffle. I'm not sure. I do like it trimmed. I'm just not sure if I want to take the red off or not. Okay, after consulting with my dear friend Otzi, we decided I needed to take the red off because A, I don't really like how it cut into, there's not very much border there. I didn't like how the corner rounding cut into that. And B, you know, I'm not gonna, whatever color if I edge it, it's not gonna be red, and then the red's gonna be weird with that thin red and then whatever color is there. And so we decided, and actually I quite love how they look. And it definitely takes, you know, enough to make quite a difference in terms of comfortable grabbing. So I'll be back to show you them all trimmed, so that you can see them all trimmed up. But I'm actually quite happy with that. Okay, so I'm partway through. I decided to show you partial. So I really actually quite like them like this, and it's certainly a lot easier to grab a hold of, and they're so flexible, they're still going to be so easy to shuffle. But I don't mind this at all. Again, not cutting these because of look, I'm cutting these for my hand, but I'm happy with how it turned out. So these, I got a bunch of these to corner, taking a break from cutting, then I just have a few more to cut. Okay, somebody's going to ask me how I do this. So I just do it with scissors. You pick a spot and then you commit to the cut. Now along the sides, you're going to have to shift up, but just stay steady. Take the least amount of cuts as possible, so like all the way. And then here I try to go all the way, commit, and all the way. So those are already edged. So that's how I do it. I do it with scissors. I have tried the sliding cutters. I don't think they work. For me, they don't work very as well. Now maybe a guillotine one, but I just use scissors. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these up, and then I will show them to you one last time before, oh, I didn't even have the light on. Welp, I will show them to you with better lighting in a minute. All right, and there is the final iteration with all of the edges off. I actually really like the size of it now. I mean, it's still not a short deck, but it shuffles so much easier. Let's see, it's about the exact same as the Dreams of Gaia, which is a larger deck, so it's still not small by any means. Thinner. For Llewellyn, it's a little thinner than the Llewellyn now, but still a little bit taller. So I actually quite like the size that it turned out. I guess the next question would be, like, what would I use these for? There are some samples in the book of different spreads that are, for me, feel a little more tarot-y. I know that I do use Oracle different than I use Tarot for the most part. There are some exceptions, such as Chronicles of Destiny, Madame Endor's fortune cards. So there are a couple exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, I do use Oracle differently. And so, because if you think about it, these cards don't have a specific connotation to them. So, you know, a spider, well, yes, some people might be terrified of spiders, right? A spider, in terms of what the energy might be, isn't a negative by itself. It's a natural, you know, creature who is going about its natural business and functioning as it naturally should, right? So there's not really a positive or negative connotation there. Same thing with an otter or a grouse or a mountain lion or an owl or a possum. Like, none of these, even the more, you know, I'm thinking like a wolverine that we have in Michigan, but that's not one of them. Badgers, so to speak, or a skunk. You know, what they're doing is functioning as they naturally would function and how they're naturally set to function. Badgers are very defensive and aggressive, right? But they're functioning within the parameters of what they are. And so there isn't necessarily going to be something that is a light or shadow. There are light and shadow aspects of both, right? But in their upright format, you're not going to really see that. Now, I don't use physical reversals, which you could definitely do, but I just feel physical reversals just don't really resonate with me. I do find with them in Deste and another small oracle deck that's Lenormand in feeling. But tarot and oracle, I don't use physical reversals because I feel as if the system in its upright incarnation should encompass those energies. And if it doesn't, then I tend to use it very specifically. So how would I find myself using these would be very similar to how I would find myself using, say, the animal spirit cards, which are the same thing. They're simply animal pictures. Now, that does include some energetic, like fire, earth, and water, which, you know, are inherently in these animals as well. It's pretty easy to see what is air, what is earth, what is air, what is water, right? So that is there as well, but it's just the animal. So I would use these in much the same way. And so what I will do with the animal spirit by the Wild Unknown is, if I'm going to do, say, an elemental reading, a 5-card elemental, then I will lay down first, sometimes downward. So I might lay them like this. Well, I would have done fire, air, water, and earth, and then spirit, right? And then I would lay the tarot cards, in this case. I'll just random split it here just to show. So then I would lay fire, air, water, earth. I might need to slide things over here. Earth and spirit, and then I would do the tarot reading as I would normally, and then see, okay, what is some underlying energy, and see, okay, it's moose energy, there's snake energy underlying, there's camel energy underlying this 10 of Wands. So this is about bearing that burden and keep moving ahead, and then having the camel, which says, you know, about that endurance and making sure that you're storing up what you need, because you may need to access it when times are lean and when things are really difficult, right? So then if I'm looking here, we have the Black Panther, and I would combine that with the moon, which is really beautiful. And then for spirit, we have the dragonfly and the 5 of Cups, which lends a little transformation energy to the 5 of Cups, which is actually in this deck quite a difficult card. So I would use that for underlying. Now, sometimes I just lay them upright at the beginning, and again, I'm reading, this is the main card, and this is giving me energetic information that's kind of underneath here and giving more information. So I do that with a 10-card elemental reading, and I use it primarily when I do that reading. I use the animal spirit card with the Wild Unknown. This I would definitely use in combination. I think this deck works beautifully together, and so this is how I could definitely see myself using this particular deck. Another way that I would use it, the one that we were already shown was in two, Oracle I often do use in sets of two, but again, that mother, what is that mother receptive energy going on? What is the father active energy going on? Sets of two like this. I will often, of course, do in my three voices have two. I'll split and I might take what is in light, what is in shadow, right? What is a weakness, what is a strength? Different dichotomies like that. What is a challenge and what is helping with that challenge. So there'll be very specific positions, because then whether it's in light or in shadow has to do with the position that it's in. The other thing that I often use Oracle are at moon readings, but I often use these at ends of day as well. And my typical three voices would be, or three card, either at the end of the day or at the end of the month, is to look at what is something that I need to let go of. The chickadee is about being strong. It's about endurance. There's lots of things. So there may be a way in which I don't need that energy right now because it is stopping me from really feeling an energy, right? And so that might be something in which I need to, for right now, release. It doesn't mean that it's bad energy, but it means that it's not serving me at the moment, and it's something that I need to release because that's not something I need to work with right now. Or you could look at the chickadee and think about the chickadee in its reverse, what would it look like in shadow, and that needs to be released. So there's different ways to look at that. The antelope is to do with action, so I still want to hold on to action, to that active energy of the antelope. But it's about knowledgeable. It talks about in this guidebook about knowledgeable action. It's not just kind of skittish and running off like a deer maybe that gets startled, but it's very much a strategic way to be able to see which way to movement forward. So very masculine, active energy. That's something I still want to maintain. I still want to hold on to. And then what is an energy that I want to is going to be coming into focus and I need to focus on, which would be the swan energy. And in this deck, the swan is about grace. It ushers in a time of altered states of awareness and development of intuitive abilities. This is about being able to see the future. This is accept your ability to know what lies ahead, to stop resisting self-transformation and relax into it, and so on and so forth. So I would see what is this energy that's coming up. And I often do this at full moons, new moons or full moons, depending on, I do it for myself on full moons, but sometimes I do it for people on new moons as well. It's a 3-card draw like this, what to let go of, what to hold on to, a lesson learned, and then what energy to focus on moving in. And so that's another way that I would really see using this particular deck as well. So pretty much the ways that I would use the animal spirit, because they're quite similar in that they're just animals, right? There's nothing layered in here. There's no, yes, in the guidebook there are some keywords, but on the cards themselves, it's really open to how you would. You could also just draw this for, say, that there is a situation at hand. What is going to help me, what is a guide to help me on the physical, everyday world, and what is a guide to help me in the spiritual world. Just that kind of thing where you're having specific questions or specific places for these to go, because inherently there's not light and shadow just in their upright position, and we have to know what it is that we're focusing on. So I hope that helps in some ways. Thank you so much for looking at this deck with me. This is then a look at the medicine cards, the revised and expanded edition by Jamie Sams and David Carson. And I don't know that I said this at the beginning because, again, this was my second time through. I know I talked about it in the first time, but there are 2 versions. The 2 versions here, there's an older version, and then there is this version, which is in, let's see, the first version came out in 1988, and this version came out in 1999, and it does say revised and expanded, and it has extra cards. So if you're buying this, generally I think this is the deck that you see if it's available for purchase, but you might want to just double check that if you want all of the cards. So I hope that that makes sense, and thank you for watching, and have an absolutely wonderful day.